Okay, let's start with arguably the best recruiting class in the nation, even though it was a pretty small class for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ben Van Ooyen joins us from the Ozone to discuss the Buckeyes class, and we knew, Ben, in discussing this last week at this time, that there wouldn't be a whole lot of drama for Urban Meyer. The coaching staff just did so much work to get ready for this day that they pretty much had this class in place, and it's worked out pretty well.
Like I said last week, 9 early enrollees that were already enrolled, so they were only waiting on 11 letters of intent this morning, and then they were waiting on Jay Tufele to announce, and he ended up picking USC. And then Thayer Munford, he was the offensive lineman out of Massillon. He selected Ohio State, so he became the 21st commitment. And then all of Buckeye Nation was really hoping that Marvin Wilson, the big defensive tackle out of Texas, would pick Ohio State, but alas, he chose Florida State in the end. So Ohio State still signed 21 kids in this class, still the number 2 class in the nation. They filled a lot of needs, and really excited about what Ohio State did this year.
Yeah, and checking out the 24/7 composite, it's 21 commits. You're saying 22 commits. The 5 stars total 5. So 5 stars are quite the commodity, the rare commodity in college football. There are very few programs, I believe 6 or 7 today, that signed multiple 5-star athletes. And for Ohio State, that's 5-star recruits according to 24/7, 14 4-stars, 2 3-stars. We know that Ohio, Ben, is a talent-rich state. We also know that the population is shifting, and it's becoming more and more difficult for those northern powers to stay up with the teams from the SEC in particular. How does Urban Meyer lock down Ohio but still run to Texas and Florida to grab elite athletes and get them out of SEC country? Just curious, getting your take on Urban Meyer's success there at Ohio State. We discussed it last week. You or I could bring in a top 25 class, but we're talking about arguably historic classes. Certainly the 2013 version was, and he's doing it by locking down Ohio. We know it's a recruiting-rich state, talent-rich state, but it's on the decline because of the population shift. So it's becoming more and more difficult for the likes of Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame to keep up, but he's still able to kind of get over that barrier.
Ohio State is Ohio football, so the name speaks to itself. Obviously, there are programs around the state of Ohio, like Michigan State, Notre Dame, that do come in and pluck kids out. And Ohio State only had 7 commitments this year from Ohio, which is normally not very much.
Hey, Ben, the situation there, the dynamics within the league and especially the division, much different than they were just a few years ago when Urban Meyer first took over the head coaching job at Ohio State in 2012. James Franklin now at Penn State, reeling in top 15 classes. We'll hear from Ellie Moretta-Felice on Penn State a little bit later. Michigan State, obviously a factor. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh doing great work there. We'll get a report from Michigan as well. DJ Durkin at Maryland. So Urban Meyer not necessarily just controlling everything, but the rivalries on the recruiting trail have become pretty intense in the division.
Yeah, with the hiring of top-notch head coaches in the Big Ten, obviously they're coming in and they're trying to make their mark, whether it be in Ohio or in the states surrounding Ohio. I said on Twitter today that Maryland was by far the most shocking class in terms of top rankings. They pulled in a top 15 class, and wouldn't have expected that from them. But everybody in the Big Ten is hiring quality coaches, and recruiting is just going to become that more complex going forward.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Maryland just removed for 2 years from a 2-10 season, wins 6 games this past year, and suddenly a bottom feeder in the Big Ten is reeling in a top 15 class. Definitely Ohio State still the king of the Big Ten, both on the field for the most part, and definitely in the recruiting wars for the time being. Ben Van Ooyen joins us from the Ozone. Ben, we appreciate the time. We will need you back a number of times, I'm sure, in the coming months.
All right, great. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.